Hi, I'm Judy Shearwaters. Welcome to my channel. Here I bring you author interviews of ordinary people who had stories that they wanted to share with the world. I also bring you short writing prompts to help get that creative juice flowing in you to get your memoir written down for your generations to come. Because you know what? You have a story to tell. Let me help you tell it. Today I have not one author, but two authors I really want you to meet. They have a story that the world needs to hear. So let me introduce you to Shelley Buck and Cathys. Hello, Shelley. How are you?
Hello, very well, thank you.
Well, I'm so glad you are on here with us today, and your best friend, Cathys, is with us too. Good morning, Cathys.
Hi, Judy.
Hi. Shelley, let me tell you a little bit about Shelley here. Shelley Buck moved from the Midwest to California to follow her dream of working for Disney, where she met her husband, Chris, who would go on to win an Oscar for directing Disney's Frozen. And I have a story about Frozen, but well, some other time. When their first son, Ryder, was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 22, Shelley began to write their story. Her lessons in parenting and the power of Ryder's spirit offer profound messages for living in the light. That's very touching. Thank you, Shelley. I look forward to reading your book. I'm sorry, I have not read it yet, but I do look forward to reading it.
You do have a copy, yes?
Yes.
Great.
So, and Cathys, her longtime best friend, is an author, an expressive writing guide whose programs help people process their emotions, improve their mental health, and access their spiritual strength during times of grief, illness, or other major stressors in life. After the death of her own mother, writing not only eliminated her grief, but led to a powerful connection with her mother's spirit. The Invisible Ink writing program that resulted from her own journey has successfully helped countless others do the same. So I'm so glad that you both were able to come on at the same time. So,
well, we love doing this.
Good. So I'm going to start with you, Shelley, and ask you a few questions here so our people can get to know you even more and kind of know your journey here. So first of all, and a little bit of that has been explained in your bio, but what encouraged you to write the book?
Well, I started an online journal when Ryder was diagnosed to keep everyone, close family and friends, updated on his progress. And several people suggested that I write a book. But it seemed like just too big a step at the time. And the thing that actually pushed me over the edge and got me to do it was a message that I got from Ryder after he'd passed that said, "Write my story, Mom, I'll help." So I couldn't refuse. Of course, we got started at that point.
And I understand that Ryder, your son Ryder, he actually wrote parts of it himself. Can you tell us a bit about how that came about?
Well, I'll tell you, the beginning was finding our theme through a song he had written, the first song he'd ever written, called "Leave Your Light On." And then we drew from his journals and essays that he'd written in school, messages that we got from him after he'd passed. And we just went from there. He was prolific as a writer, so we had lots to draw from. And the hardest part was what to leave out. So we did get a song from him posthumously, which his band finally recorded. It's on his third CD.
Okay. How old was Ryder when he was diagnosed, Shelley? And what was his initial diagnosis?
He was 22. Oh. And he was diagnosed with stage 4 testicular cancer. So he had a surgery the first week to remove the tumor. And then he was in chemotherapy within a couple of weeks after that.
Mm, mm. So, and how long was that journey?
He was in treatment for 9 months. He had 2 weeks off in between 1 week stints at the hospital where he was hooked up daily to his chemo. I spent every day at the hospital with him. Sometimes he was grateful for it, and sometimes he just wanted to be alone, so I'd go take a walk. I just had to gauge his mood.
I'm sure that was really difficult. What was your biggest challenge during that time?
Well, the hardest thing was to let Ryder just define his own path. He had the doctor to set boundaries for him. And the last thing he needed was a hovering mom. But it was very hard not to do that. That was one of my biggest challenges, was to lengthen the leash and let him find his own way and find his own light. And he did lots of things to nurture that. I encouraged him to be himself and to pursue his passions. But on those weeks when he was off and running. He went up the coast to concerts, he went hiking and surfing and camping, and I just had to breathe deeply and let it go.
Such a smart mommy. Such a smart mommy.
It was really difficult, but he needed to feed his spirit, and he made it very clear, and got away from Cancer Mom and Cancer House as often as he could.
So can you tell us a bit about Ryder's life between the time he ended his cancer treatments and then his accident?
Yes, he continued his adventures, reaching out into the world as much as possible. He scheduled endless gigs, sometimes 2 in a night, which kept us running from one venue to another. He organized beach jams where everyone would bring an instrument or their voice and play along to his music around the fire. And he got himself into a world music class in Bali. And he was gone for 1 month, including his 23rd birthday.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, the first birthday I had ever spent without him. It was just Ryder living large, and it seemed like nothing could stop him. Nothing was too big a challenge, and he was grabbing life for all it was worth.
Wow. Wow. I love your book cover. How did that come about?
Well, the original book cover, I worked on with my sister, who's a graphic artist, and the picture at the top is our Ryder's hands playing his guitar. And we have since redesigned the book cover for easier marketing purposes and to better portray the energy in the book. I can show you that if you like. Okay.
Please do.
This is the new.
That's the new one. Okay.
The new book cover. And this will be coming out next week. So anybody who orders in the middle of next week will get that cover.
Great. Yeah, that's the one I saw. I love that.
Oh,
that's beautiful. Great. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, well, who is your audience? Who would you like to reach with your book of Ryder?
Well, our main audience is young adults, those who need the inspiration to follow their passions, find themselves, and just reach for their own light. This is what Ryder did, and he had the courage to live from an authentic, passionate place. So those are the people we want to reach, you know, those who just need to be themselves and find their own light. And we've also gotten great feedback from parents of young adults who are going through some crisis or another, which that age is always fraught with challenges. And also parents who are grieving, whether it's a child or a loved one,
Mm,
this book is also tailored to them.
Great, great. And tell me, when did you meet Cathys? How did that whole working relationship take place?
This is one of my favorite stories. Cathys moved into our neighborhood when we were both in 7th grade. I had nothing but guy friends
Mm,
because that's all the neighborhood offered. And this was the first real girlfriend that I ever had. And Cathys and I made a connection immediately. And it's lasted throughout our lives. Most of the time we've lived miles apart. But when it came time to write the book, I had no idea where to find a co-author. It was suggested to me that I would need one. And I called Cathys just in a twist. Where am I going to get this? Do I have to go to New York? And Cathys said, Shelley, I've written books about grief. This is right up my alley. And so, of course, it was staring me right in the face. And we began at that point. Cathys knows our family intimately.
mm.
She knows Ryder. And it was a seamless effort. We really, we got along beautifully. She helped walk me through the grief that I was still processing, and with a very deft touch.
Awesome, awesome. Are you living in the same area now?
No, I live in California. She lives in Indiana.
Oh, okay. So you did a lot through Zoom, or how did you?
By phone. We spoke a couple of times a day, and we had a shared document that we were both working on. So that was how we managed that.
Awesome. Well, Cathys, what was it like writing a book with your best friend, especially a story that included grief and pain that affected both of you?
That's a great question because it was such an honor for me to get to do that. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And a responsibility because I wanted to make sure that the book that we wrote was what Shelley wanted, but
Mm,
really what Ryder would have wanted,
mhm.
So like I had to keep my intuitive hat on a lot, which I do anyway, and it was great. But there were times when just like holding the space for Shelley to continue grieving at the same time I was grieving and trying to guide her through some of the choices that have to be made when you're, figuring out the real purpose of the book. And, like she said, a lot of things had to be taken out that really didn't fit the purpose once we figured that out. But it was a very full body, full heart, full mind, full spirit experience for me, and it was like nothing I've ever done.
Mm,
So
mm. That's
yeah,
special. That's
yeah,
really special.
And I'm forever grateful.
Mhm. Well, Cathys, you've written a few books yourself. Can you tell us about them?
sure. The first book that I wrote actually did not start out to be a book, which is I think true for many people. My mom had died. It was the grief I felt was profound. I had never felt anything like that before, and I had been leading people through emotional crises through creativity for many years. I was a program leader, and so I thought, well, this is what I need to do for me. I need to do that type of thing for myself. And I began writing letters to my mom because my mom and I had written letters to one another in life, in the mail, not email, but in the mail. And I got done with that, and I kept feeling this nudge like, no, you're not done. There's more to say. And I couldn't figure out what it was, and it really haunted me for a couple of years. And finally, I had just a very strange synchronistic experience, and I felt like my mother wanted to write back. And it was a total like creative leap that I took, but I thought, okay. So I figured out how to just allow that to happen. And what came from that was the elimination of grief from my body. And also this connection with her that was palpable. And I thought, oh my God, I had no idea this is where it would go. So I put the letters to her and from her in a little book called Invisible Ink. And I published it. And um, then I developed a writing program to lead other people through the same kind of journey and found that it worked for them too. And so now I'm coming out with a second edition of the book that will have the letters and the writing prompts that I use in my program. So that's my first book. And yeah, that was wonderful. But I've written a book of haiku for people that are going through grief, and another book as well, and many books for other people. It sounds like you've done that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love using haikus in grief, and with patients that I work with. I do love that haikus because well, anyway, we won't go into
Yes,
how to
it's
write the
short and
haikus,
to the
but that's
point, right?
fun
Right.
to write, and they're really good for for that purpose. So yeah, you've worked with other authors, and I'm going to be interviewing you again on another video. Thank you very much for agreeing to that, or
Sure.
about your writing, publishing, and marketing. But what advice would you give to first-time authors, Cathys?
Oh boy, there's so many things that I would want to say, but I think for me, the number one most important thing is defining your purpose and why you're doing the book and what it's about. And if I could just talk a little bit about what Shelley and I went through with Leave Your Light On. She had written a journal, and it was a very linear start to finish
Sure.
and beyond. Okay. But what we talked about, and that was just like she wanted all of that in there. But what we talked about over and over is the fact that, there are a lot of books out there about a grief journey. How does the story, stand out in the middle of that? How do we help it shine its own light? And what we ended up figuring out is that it was not so much about Ryder's life and death, but about Ryder's being, because his light is what made him the magnificent creature he was, and that helped Shelley in her grief. She found that light again. She saw his light. And so just like really doing that, it's hard work, and you probably know what I'm talking about, but you have to know what is your purpose and how are you going to tell that story so that when it gets to the business end of being an author, you've got a market that you want to speak to and you know how to reach them. So that's my number one advice.
Great advice. Great advice. So, Shelley, how are you and Cathys marketing your Leave Your Light On now? I know you're redoing a book cover. That's huge in marketing. What else are you doing? What are you doing to market it and get the word out there?
Well, we're doing podcasts, endless podcasts, and it's been wonderful. There have been newspaper articles. There was a lot of publicity around Ryder's death, so we're well known in this community. We're using social media, Amazon ads. I've done some book signings, though with COVID, that's been very difficult, few and far between. So instead of that, we've done author moderated book clubs. So anyone who wants to get their book club together to read Leave Your Light On, Cathys and I are available via Zoom, and they can find that link on our website. The last thing we're doing are presentations to organizations for young adults going through cancer, or anyone going through grief.
Okay. And you know what? I have to totally apologize here, but I need you to go back in time again and I know that Ryder was healed from his
Oh, yes.
cancer journey, but then can you tell us the rest of Ryder's story?
Well, he was declared clear in May or June of 2013, then took off on his adventures, living life to the fullest. He was coming home from a friend's house one early morning through a dense fog, and his car broke down. So he tried to call me a couple of times, and for some reason my ringer was off. It's never off, but I missed the calls at about 4:20 in the morning, and he walked home along the freeway, and he was hit by two cars. And the CHP came to my door around 8 o'clock in the morning. No one was home with me but my youngest son, and we went to the hospital and got the news.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow. That's just, it's one of those when God wants you home, he's going to take you. And we
I
all
guess.
our days numbered, but Ryder definitely left his mark on this world for a long time to come with his music.
Yes.
So I am so glad that we have that, and I would love to be able to share some of that with my audience. And I'm sorry I didn't ask you this before, but we might be able to play a little bit on this on my.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
We can get that to you. Yes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking this time, ladies. This was enjoyable. Is there any last words you have for my audience? My audience is memoir writers looking to write their own words. Any final words of wisdom for them? Cathys?
I have 4, and they are leave your light on. Like, really know where that light comes from within you and follow it. That'll be your North Star through the journey of writing the book or whatever else you're going through. But, the light that we have within us is really gets poured into the messages and the stories that we want to tell. So, yeah.
Shelly, any last words from you?
Just keep on keeping on. It can be a long journey. It can be arduous. The editing process can be mind-bending, but it's worth it in the end. You'll come out with something that you're proud of and is definitely marketable. So there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Great. I'll leave Cathys' link to her. I'll leave her link in the show notes, as well as Shelly's link if you'd like to purchase Leave Your Light On. It's available on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. I'll leave that link in the show notes. So please go and pick up a copy of that. I believe it's an ebook, or is it just paperback?
No, ebook, audiobook, paperback, and hardback.
Okay, and who did the audiobook?
I did that with my youngest son, who sounds remarkably like Ryder and is an actor. So he poured himself into being his brother.
Oh my goodness.
It was a moving experience.
Wow, I'll bet so.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, can't imagine that. But the audiobook sounds so much better just to hear it. And so that's great. Well, congratulations, Shelly, for getting your story out. And my whole channel is about ordinary people telling great stories and sharing it with the world. And so I thank you for doing that with my audience.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies. And I will bid adieu.
All righty.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed our time with Shelly and Cathys today, 2 ordinary authors who had a story to share with the world. I'm going to leave a link in the show notes to a YouTube video that Ryder made on his music, Leave Your Light On. I'll also leave a link to Shelley's website where you can contact her to get Ryder's music and learn some more about Ryder and about Shelley. So, if you enjoy videos like this and videos for writing prompts for yourself, go ahead and click on that subscribe and push that little bell button so that you are notified every time I put out another video like this. So until next time, I'm Judy Shear Waters, and you have a story to tell. Let me help you tell it.